What is going on, you guys? Blaze over here at Blue Chip Athletic Club to talk to you about a little energy balance, body type, and macronutrient basics. So I know I talked about fundamentals of energy balance in the last video, but we're going to kind of dive into it a little bit more here. Um, and just wanted to make sure that we also hit on some information about some body types and macronutrients to kind of get us started here on our health and wellness journey. And we got to give it up to the GOAT, Michael Jordan here. I just love this photo. It's not really a great reason for it to be in here, but here we are. All right. So for us to understand energy balance even better, we need to understand what calories are. So a calorie is a unit of heat to raise the temperature of 1 milliliter of water by 1 degree Celsius at sea level. Geez, Louise, yawn. More importantly, calories are the building blocks of energy creation in the body. So at the end of the day, if you're not consuming calories, you're not going to be able to expend energy and then live and do the basic functions that the body needs. So how does food or, drink also provide calories to the body? Well, you take in raw ingredients here. It gets processed through the body here through this structure. Your food gets broken down in the stomach, goes through intestines, and then comes out as you poop it out, basically at the end of the day. So food kind of tracks through the body, and your body is able to kind of pull the essential nutrients and calories out at critical points. So, how do food and calories provide the energy? Well, we've got a couple different forms of energy here that we basically use to combine with oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water to basically form ATP, i.e., energy. One is going to be fats. Fats come into cellular respiration to create energy. Proteins also do the same thing, and they're essential for the body's functions. And then the other one that can be used is glucose. So carbohydrates are transformed into glucose, which then are the third kind of piece of this equation for ATP. This is why a lot of people say that you can, be on a keto diet because carbohydrates aren't necessary. And although that's true, the glucose then will just come from ketones, as opposed to the glucose, and then that's going to be the third kind of piece of the pie there. So just realize that, you know, uh, the glucose from carbohydrates, if you eat, broccoli has carbohydrates in it. Doesn't mean they're necessarily bad, just means that that's just another form of energy for you to kind of take and move on into your life with. So, next thing we're going to chat about here is going to be the energy balance kind of continuum. Don't get freaked out by this. It's super straightforward, and we'll kind of go through it real fast. So, energy intake is going to be from carbohydrates, proteins, fats, alcohols are going to basically come into the body. And then your energy expenditure is going to be given up by your RMR, which is going to be your resting metabolic rate. So, let's say you decided to not do anything throughout the day. That's going to be like your resting energy that you're going to basically expend out. Next one's going to be your NEAT. That's pretty neat, which is going to be your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is just basically like, hey, your body is at the end of the day, like putting heat off. It's going to make processes occur. So that's going to be that kind of piece of the pie. Next one's going to be your physical activity. So this is like, hey, your workouts, you're hiking, you're doing whatever. This is your body's going to burn energy and thermal process with that. And then the last one's going to be the thermal effective feeding, which is essentially like, hey, the energy your body burns based on digesting and eating food on a day-to-day basis. So kind of a way to break down your energy. So if our energy intake is larger than our energy expenditure, again, like we said before, we're going to gain mass over time. And if our energy expenditure is greater than our energy intake, we're going to lose mass over time, i.e. lose weight. So, it's just a numbers game, right? Well, not quite. Things come into play that are unique to you when it comes to macronutrients, when it comes to energy balance in general. One of those things is going to be body types. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but there's three main body types: endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph. And I'll hit on those here in a second. Second one is going to be genetics. Genetics are real. If anybody's ever told you they're not, they're lying to you. But it definitely plays a factor into your ability to make progress in the way that you eat. And then third is going to be efficiency of your cells to convert calories to energy, aka your metabolism. Thankfully, this is something that we can alter and shift, but something that we can kind of get into here in the rest of this training. So first off, body types. I know I kind of left you on a cliffhanger there. So we have three different kind of body types that we're going to kind of go over. So your ectomorphs, these are going to be the people that are, naturally lean and thin. So let's think of like, hey, this is like Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps is a really lean, thin swimmer. He may even bleed a little bit over to the mesomorph, but think about like the beanpole kid that you know or beanpole girl that you knew who was unable to put on any weight. You could eat almost anything around you and you never gain a pound and your body kind of never shifts. Those are the ectomorphs, or people that are essentially naturally really lean. The mesomorphs or mesomorphs, I guess, depending on who you ask, those are going to be the people that have the athletic build. They've got, yeah, the wide shoulders. Naturally they're going to gravitate more towards this athletic build. Females are going to have a little bit slightly wider waist and more of like the hourglass shape, if you will, and going to have that kind of naturally as a part of their body types. And then the endomorphs, i.e., myself here, if I were to stop working out in general, I think I would gravitate to putting on weight and then being more of this oblong oval type shape. So, understanding your body type and kind of which of these three molds you fit into based on your natural tendencies is really important as we kind of move forward and plan out a really effective nutrition plan for you. All right. We talked body types. We're talking part two now, which is going to be genetics. Um, Genetics are real. I know I said it before, but I'll say it again. Arnold Schwarzenegger's son has a higher threshold for weightlifting than Michael Phelps' son. I mean, that's just a fact, right? So, making sure that you understand that genetics are going to be important and in play in your health and wellness journey is going to be super key. Understanding that genetics are a limiting factor after a certain point. One thing I will talk about here too is that we can change them. We can almost change our genetics here from a molecular level. But understanding that like there is going to be a diminishing return. Not everybody was meant to be a 360-pound offensive lineman in the NFL. That's just not the way it goes. So be aware that your genetics will end up limiting you at some point. But there's definitely a lot of progress that can be made along the way. So, a couple more facts here about genetics. According to Precision Nutrition, people share over 99.9% of the same genes. Additionally, genes are evolutionarily conserved, but small genetic differences just explain how people react to certain different foods and diets. So, the big thing is making sure that you understand your body and communicate that with your coach over time. That way, you're able to make progress along the way. So I know I talked a little bit about energy efficiency and how we can kind of alter that. But the way that I'm going to kind of break that down is here through our favorite piece of the cell, which is the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Um, Changing your mitochondria is something that can help you change your genetics over time. And the way that I'm going to talk to you about that is going to be the use of food that are then converted into energy, and i.e. ATP for the body. So if you are consuming good foods in a good environment and exercising frequently, you're creating clean, lean energy in the form of ATP in your mitochondria. These three components here that are free radicals, i.e., reactive oxygen species, um, essentially are going to be creating wasted energy, or we'll call it like waste product. That's basically going to make it more difficult for your body to produce the energy that it needs and be super, super efficient and effective. So think about, ATP, clean energy, and then think about the ROS as like, processed waste. And the things that go into that are going to be stress, unhealthy foods, and general toxins. So like alcohol, and those types of things as well. So if you are able to reframe what your mitochondria is taking in and putting out, because you are quite literally what you eat, you can take in more healthy foods, be in a better environment, and exercise more frequently. Over time, your mitochondria will become more efficient and effective, making your metabolism, quote unquote, that the typical way that people think of that, speed up and be more effective over time. All right, macronutrients. What are they and why do they matter? So we've got three macronutrients or macros that are typically shortened up as, because people don't want to say the whole word all the time. We've got proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. So I know I alluded to it before, but technically your body only needs proteins and fats to function properly. but carbs definitely have their place as well in the grand scheme of things when it comes to glucose coming into the body. So, proteins. Let's talk about what proteins are. They're going to be here at the top in the green. Proteins are crucial to ensure cells can do their jobs of protein synthesis and protein transport throughout the body. If you're somebody who has a protein deficiency, you can have hormonal imbalances, depressed immune function, poor recovery, injury. So if you're somebody who is active in the gym and, working out a ton or whatever that kind of looks like for you, you have more movement occurring in your day-to-day life. That means you're going to need more protein to kind of keep up with that movement that you're doing in your training regimen. Be aware that, these types of things I'm kind of hitting on, if you have a protein deficiency, are something that you kind of need to ask yourself and think about. So, like, hey, maybe you're somebody who gets sick all the time. And like maybe the reason that you get sick all the time isn't that it's cold outside and you live in the Midwest. It's you have a protein deficiency and your body's not able to do normal bodily functions, i.e., fight disease, create, those vital protein transports throughout the body, and then you're not able to kind of combat those things. So this may actually allude to a different issue that you have, and it's just presented in a different way. All right, fats. So fats store energy, insulate the body, and help regulate hormones, transport critical vitamins as well throughout the body. So again, fats are essential, proteins are essential, and fats are going to be here kind of at the bottom of our ATP equation. Insufficient fats can lead to hormonal imbalances as well, vitamin deficiencies, or weakened immune system. So again, we're still in those same like critical phases of like, hey, if your hormones are off, your, immune system is off, you have these other things happening, you may have an insufficient level of proteins and fats, those vital and essential macronutrients, instead of, you go outside too much, or, you're not getting the best bang for your buck out of your immune system, or your hormones are way out of whack and maybe your cortisol levels are really high and you're incredibly stressed. Could also have been playing a huge factor in your day-to-day life. Okay, last piece here is going to be carbohydrates. Although technically not required in the body, carbohydrates here are converted into glucose, which is our stop sign here, or red. I don't want to say stop sign because that makes it seem like I don't want you to eat them, and we definitely do. Um, it converts into glucose and becomes part of the cellular energy creation for your body's quick go-to energy on the go. So, what I want you to think of is like glucose in the form, or carbohydrates in the form of glucose essentially take the role of like a quick energy burn. So let's say you're having a campfire out at your house and you pour gasoline on it. That is going to be your carbohydrates, which are glucose that are going to burn immediately in your workout before the wood that's under the fire. The wood under the fire would be like the proteins and or fats that are kind of involved. So the carbohydrates are going to be that quick go-to form of energy. This is why some bodybuilders will actually slam like Rice Krispie sheets the night before, right before a workout, for quick energy, for simple carbs that are quickly converted to energy and used right away. Although I do not recommend doing that, it's a reason that they do that. And it's also a reason that marathon runners, or, people that are running big races, a lot of times as they're building up to their event, what they're going to do is then change their macronutrient split to take in more carbohydrates. So they're able to burn that energy off in the beginning of their race and have it there for quick fuel. All right. Here's how we do it. Here's how we game the weight gain, weight loss, or body composition that you want. In terms of weight gain and weight loss, it's played with calories in, calories out, but ultimately the macros, i.e., what the calories consist of, is equally or potentially even more important. So, the best analogy I can give you is 2,000 calories of gummy bears, although it's 2,000 calories, and if you're, point where you don't gain or lose any weight is going to be at 2,000 calories because you're at your, maintenance calorie limit. You may not gain any weight or lose any weight, but if you take in 2,000 calories of gummy bears and your best friend takes in 2,000 calories of protein and produce, I think your body types, and I think you can also attest that your body types would likely be very, very different. So just something to kind of keep in mind as we move forward. So here's kind of recommendations for getting started with a basic macronutrient split. Now, I want to preface like this is not for everybody. Doing the total daily energy expenditure, tracking protein intake, all these things are not something that is for everybody. Your coach will likely end up attacking your nutrition from a couple different avenues. One of them being Precision Nutrition Pro Coach, another one being if this is something that's helpful to you, tracking your intake as well could be something else that we can do. But your coach will be able to kind of guesstimate that based on what you're eating and if you're communicating with them effectively as well. So this is again not for everybody, but something that's going to be available to you, and we're going to talk through it here. So calculating your total daily energy expenditure. There's a training here in the onboarding section of this curriculum. If you need to go through that, please do. It's basically going to give you a maintenance calorie number. It's going to tell you how many macronutrients you should be taking in and, based on your goals. I just want you to remember that this is a general target for calories as well as macronutrients for you to hit. If it tells you, hey, my maintenance calories are going to be whatever 2000, that's not factoring in your genetics, it's not factoring in any evidence-based decision making. So take it with a grain of salt, but it may be a good spot for us to kind of start as we go through your training. The next thing I would like you to do is I'd like you to take, if for some reason you are not going to do this, and total daily energy expenditure I think is not always necessary for everybody. But if you're somebody who wants to kind of really start to dial in, how much lean protein they're getting, because it's typically people come to us and they've got an issue with the amount of protein that they're taking on and into their body and processing. And they start to kind of realize that as you start to track and or understand it. But if you're somebody who's not taking in the amount of protein that you need, a really great kind of starting point is to take 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight that you weigh. So if I weigh 200 pounds, I should get about 200 grams of protein a day in. So 200 grams of protein a day is a lot. A one chicken breast is gonna, depending on how big it is, could only have like 40 grams of protein in it. So you're thinking like, hey, how many hucks of chicken breast am I going to have? Well, you're going to end up having what, 4 or 5 of those in a day if you decided to just have that. And that's not really something that's realistic for anybody to have in that way. So making sure that you're kind of aware of like this number and figure is something that can be really, really helpful as you start to kind of get your body to the position that you want it to be for your recomposition, your weight gain or weight loss. Whether you're gaining weight, losing weight, or trying to have a body recomposition, your protein intake is going to be incredibly important because of how satiating the macronutrient is. Is digested incredibly slow in the body, so it's something that keeps you more full for longer, and it's something that typically, like I said, a lot of people are under eating in their day to day. Next thing I want to say is the carb and fat split is going to come down to what kind of makes you feel the best. So, some people are like, oh, I'm going to go keto and it, does this for me. And that's fine. And that's something that you can kind of go and explore. But at the end of the day, your carbohydrate and fat intake is going to be something that's going to be like, hey, how do I feel if I eat, a ton of sweet potatoes that are more carb heavy versus, a ton of avocados, which are more higher, are higher in fat. Which one of those makes my body feel the best? Which one of those helps me perform the best? You kind of have to ask yourself those types of questions. And the other thing I do want to say too, and caveat this with, is that I personally feel that carbohydrates are something that we have immense access to in day-to-day life, right? Almost anything that comes in a box, cereal, gosh, I do sure do love it. Donuts, like any of those things all are very, very carb heavy, and a lot of them are even fat heavy. So finding a balance between, whole nutrient dense foods that are minimally processed most of the times is typically going to be the key for you. Sorry, that was a lot. All right. The next thing that I'm going to kind of leave you guys with is understanding macronutrients in your body types is huge for creating a program that works for you and your lifestyle. So we're really stoked to kind of continue working with you and getting you towards your goals and your body type to make you the happiest, healthiest for the longest amount of time. So you can keep spending time with the people that you love, doing things you enjoy. So let me know if you guys have any questions, and we'll see you guys in the next video later.